What the Ford government calls public health modernization, others call cuts. Same with reduced funding for childcare subsidies, library services, and flood management. The province's spring budget introduced major and unexpected changes to the amount of money that will flow to municipalities in Ontario. It's not sitting well with mayors and many others. Here to explore how they might grapple with the new funding levels, we welcome Cam Guthrie. He's the mayor of Guelph and chair of LUMCO, the Large Urban Mayors Caucus of Ontario. Joe Cressy is here, the Toronto City Councillor and chair of that city's Board of Health. And two players from the Mike Harris years, former Cabinet Minister John Snoblin, who's also a columnist with the Toronto Sun, and Deb Hutton, who was senior advisor to the Premier. She's now a columnist for QP Briefing, and we're delighted to welcome everybody back to TVO. Mr. Snoblin, you haven't been here in a long time. It's good to see you again.
It's been a while. You've done wonders with it. It's just...
Well, it's good to see you again. Joe Cressy, want to go to you first. We just heard from Robin Martin, the parliamentary assistant to the Minister of Health, who suggested in no uncertain terms that you are exaggerating the negative consequences of these cuts. Your response to that?
Well, on the Thursday afternoon before the Easter long weekend, without any notice, without any warning, and without any consultation, this province announced that they were cutting public health right across Ontario, and disproportionately so in Toronto, to the tune of $1 billion, according to our chief financial officer, over 10 years.
How do you come up with that billion figure?
Well, it's very simple. So prior to SARS and Walkerton, the province used to fund public health at 50% by the province, 50% for the municipalities. In the wake of SARS and Walkerton, based on an indisputable body of evidence and expert panels, that cost share was changed. In some cases, 100% from the province, in some cases, 75%. Well, they're reducing that now. We're going back to the pre-SARS and Walkerton phase for Toronto at 50-50. So what does that mean? Well, the programs we run in Toronto, vaccination programs for kids, 20,000 kids in schools every year, student breakfast programs for 212,000 students, disease control, for goodness sakes. All of those programs are now at risk because of a retroactive cut to public health units in Toronto, but in every community in this province.
I'm going to ask our director, Sheldon Osmond, to bring up this graphic here, and for those listening on podcast, I'll read it out. Here's a list of some of the things that have been announced. They are going, the province is, from 35 local health units across Ontario to 10, with an anticipated $200 million reduction in funding over the next 2 years. They will be ending OHIP coverage for travel outside Canada. They are cancelling an increase in the gas tax revenue to municipalities. There's a cut of 50% in funding for the Ontario Library Service, reducing payments to flood management programs by half, and cancelling a $50 million fund that had helped childcare centres defray costs to parents. Okay, other side, I'm going to make the mayor wait till the end here. I'm going to get everybody else's wisdom first, and then you get to have the last word on that. Is it your view, Deb Hutton, to you first, is it your view that these cuts will have no consequences at all?
I think where Joe and I agree is on the in-year cuts, or what he considers to be retroactive cuts. I do believe if the province continues down that path that we will see some unintended consequences, because I think it's difficult to make changes that I think can be made if you have to do it in-house, in-year, given that the budget's already been passed. That being said, we have a double-digit deficit in this province. We have to tackle that, or we end up in a fiscal and economic situation that's not palatable if we don't.
When you say double-digit, I think you actually mean a 9-digit. You're talking like...
Oh, sorry, yeah. But
north of $10 billion.
We're north of $10 billion,
yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So I was a little confused when you looked at me. And I also believe, by the way, not just that we have to tackle the deficit for obvious reasons, but we actually have some program deficits within health and education that if we don't take some of the non-core expenses away, we're not going to be able to keep pace with the needs that we have today, even after many years of liberal overspending. You walk into any school today and any hospital, and we're not at the level of service that we should be at, given the amount of money that we spend.
John Snoblin, this was an exercise that you performed back in the day, going back 25 years now, during the Mike Harris years. Is it possible to cut spending this much without ramifications?
No, there are going to be ramifications anytime you withdraw funding or you reduce the rate of growth of funding, which is really what we're talking about. But the real threat on social services in the province of Ontario is the fastest growing expenditure in the provincial government's line, and that's interest on debt. And every year you put off making those budget changes, every moment that you put off, you exasperate that growing part of the budget called interest payments. And that really threatens healthcare, really threatens education, really threatens social services. So someone needs to do something, and they need to do it now.
You are here not just representing your city, but you're here representing large urban agglomerations all over the province of Ontario and the mayors that represent those cities. Up until now, your group has kind of held its fire against the Ford government, but not now. How come you've come out now against?
Well, many mayors were reaching out to me as the chair of the Large Urban Mayors Caucus of Ontario, and that's 28 mayors that have a population of 100,000 or more. It represents 67% of the province population. And I was getting calls from several of the members saying, you know, we're experiencing these cuts that are in year, that were after many cities have already passed their budgets. We were never consulted. We were never given the heads up. And that frustrated a lot of mayors because our letter that we sent last week was quite clear. We understand the debt, we understand the deficit, we understand that things are going to need to be changed. But the mayors across the province are united in our voice in saying we want to work with you, but you're not on that side of the table at all. And so we really are reaching out to the government to say, you've got a willing partner, a respectful, authentic, willing partner on this side of the table. Come, we want to pull the chair up for you on this side. Give us at least some heads up and some breathing room and some runway to understand these types of cuts and changes that you're making. And they can call it modernization or they can call it something else, but really at the end of the day, they are straight up cuts. And at the end of the day, it's our citizens that we represent as the mayors that are coming to us that are the exact same citizens that the Premier and that government also represents. It's for all Ontarians that we need to be able to find those programs and services that are dearly needed by them.
How surprised were you that they made this announcement in the middle of a budget year where you guys have already done your bookkeeping, so to speak?
Very, and what's frustrating to me and to others is that many of the MPPs that are there, they come from a municipal background. Some of them were councillors or some of them were former mayors. They know straight up that we have a different fiscal year. And we've made that known to them even before the budget. And instead of recognizing those differences between the municipal government and the provincial government, they still went ahead with these. And we felt that it was done in sort of a stealth way. They're doing it through
Yeah, you called it downloading by stealth.
Yeah,
what does that
downloading
mean?
by stealth. It's not coming directly to municipalities, to mayors, and to councils and saying this is what's going on. It's going through agencies, going through public health, or going through conservation authorities, or going through social service providers that have a direct relationship with municipalities, especially on a funding level. And at the end of the day, those cuts and service changes that are happening there directly flow right back up to the municipality, and we're left to try to figure out how to deal with that.
Let me follow up with Joe Cressy here, because you garnered quite a number of headlines last week when you called a news conference with the medical officer of health for the City of Toronto, and you put it right out there, Joe. You said bluntly, people are going to die because of these cutbacks. Mm-hmm. You standing by that today?
You know, I firmly believe, Steve, that you should only yell fire if there is a fire. And when you cut public health, according to the Ontario's past doctor, Dr. David Mowat, and to our Chief Medical Officer of Health, Dr. Eileen de Villa, when you cut public health, people will die. It's not rhetoric, it's simply a fact. And here's why. When public health works, it's invisible. There has never been a headline of child doesn't get meningitis or E. coli outbreak avoided. When public health works, it prevents diseases. And what is so unfortunate here when we talk about debt and the need to tackle it is that when you invest in public health, that is the fiscally responsible place to invest, and it actually reduces healthcare costs. For every dollar that you invest in vaccinations, you save $16 in healthcare costs. Somebody doesn't get sick and end up in the hospital room. For every dollar you invest in tobacco prevention, you save $20 in healthcare costs. Someone doesn't get lung cancer. So for a government that has stated they wish to end hallway healthcare, by cutting public health, by cutting preventative healthcare, you are increasing hallway healthcare. So it's short-sighted, and yes, it is dangerous.
John Snoblin, penny wise, pound foolish?
Well, only if you made absolutely the worst possible decisions on how you would invest the money that the province is transferring, only if you would look at all of the things that are done and say, oh, well, let's quit vaccinating kids. I think that's a vacuous argument. The question is, how do you make the best use of the funds that are available? And if you never change anything, how do you get out of this vicious cycle of overspending, increasing debt, and those vicious interest payments on that enormous debt? That is a serious threat, and we have to have serious responses to get a hold of it.
Deb Hutton.
Well, one of the problems I have with Joe's argument is that I'll be really surprised if anyone could convince me that there isn't room to make reductions in non-core services anywhere, let alone in public health. I just don't buy that. I think that there has been, in particular in areas like public health, some mandate creep, where the city sees a void and they fill it. And that may be in the best interest of Torontonians in the short term, but overall, since we're all just one taxpayer, it's not in the best interest of our long-term, both, as I said earlier, fiscal and economic health. So I think it would be, and Robin spoke to you about this in her interview, I think it would serve everyone well outside of this fiscal year to actually sit down and say, why are we doing this and you're doing this and maybe even the feds are doing this? Because that is the case in public health in many, many areas.
That's half the argument, but I wonder if the other half of the argument is you're just expecting Joe Cressy and Cam Guthrie and all of their colleagues to raise their own property taxes by tens of millions of dollars to fill the shortfall. Your budgets are secured in that way, and they take the heat for raising taxes on their taxpayers. Is that part of it?
Again, I think I'm not going to defend the in-year reductions at all. But I think going forward, I mean, the province has already put out the notion that they're going to reduce the number of, or modernize the number of units that are out there. I don't think that's a bad thing. Less administration, less bureaucracy is a positive. It can't be done in the short term, but it can be done in the very medium term without a doubt. And I think that's smart. I also think, as I said, I call it mandate creep, but there are areas that the province should be doing. I looked, for example, on Toronto Public Health. They do all the studies and that sort of thing. One they did a few years ago was on artificial turf. Well, the artificial turf in Toronto isn't particularly different than the artificial turf in Mayor Guthrie's riding area. That's not something that the local health units have to do. And while that's not a big saving, it's an example of the kinds of things that we need to sort out and separate.
Well, let's do another example. You heard Robin Martin in the previous interview say that the Toronto Board of Health did a study on whether or not energy drinks are good or bad for kids, and surprise, surprise, they discovered they were bad, and they suggested maybe they ought to be banned, which is probably a power that you don't have anyway. Was that a waste of money?
So here's what's happened here, is the province has announced a retroactive cut to public health units, despite an overwhelming body of evidence suggesting otherwise. They've done this right across the province, and we've seen 28 mayors of the 28 largest cities in this province come out against it. We've seen 12 boards of health, from Haliburton to Thunder Bay to Sudbury to Toronto and Sarnia, come out against it. And after the fact, they've gone looking and cherry picking for examples to try to justify a cut that's not sitting well. So let me tell you about Toronto Public Health's budget. 91% of our budget is spent on core program delivery. So what you refer to as efficiencies, that's frontline healthcare that you're cutting. And so that's 91% of our budget. 9% of our budget goes towards finance, administration, evaluation, and public policy. So some of our budget goes towards ensuring that in heat waves, people who live in apartment buildings and don't have air conditioning, that we do research to find out how can we deliver cooling spaces better to them so they don't die of heat stroke. Some of our research goes towards looking at the safety of our streets so that we can design them better. Is that a small percentage of our budget? Absolutely. It's about $1 million. But what the province has announced is, on a go-forward basis, a $107 million cut to public health. So they might try to spin you a line and a talking point about AstroTurf, but the reality is, when you cut $107 million, there aren't enough studies to cut. You're cutting vaccinations and you're cutting student breakfast programs, and that's simply a fact.
I want to read something here, and Your Worship, I'll get you to comment on this first. This is from Matt Gurney who wrote this for our website, the tvo.org website. Matt wrote, there shouldn't be any real argument about the urgent imperative to feed hungry children, but accepting that goal does not then mean that we should slavishly adhere to a status quo funding formula that might make sense but also might not, and claims that the province's move is akin to flinging fresh fruit off a child's plate onto an unswept floor like a scene out of a Dickens novel only contributes to the further dumbing down of the political culture in this city and province, which is plenty dumb enough already. You want to respond to that?
Sure. Well, I think I'm not going to specifically go into the Toronto public health portion because as the chair, I'm trying to represent 28 different mayors. But there is a common theme there, and I'm going to come back to the fact that we've had no real conversations with them in trying to be a good partner with the provincial government to actually see how these changes can be implemented in the province. Because there's not one mayor that says you don't have a debt problem or you don't have a deficit problem. But it's giving us that runway, as I said earlier, to say, you know what, this is why in the letter from the Lumco mayors, we said, give us till next year. Give us that 8-month runway to work with you.
You've asked for that. What's their response been to that?
No, they said no. That
They said
won't.
it's a firm no.
Yes.
They won't revisit it.
No, they will not. Yeah. So.
And even Deb Hutton says that was probably not a good idea for them to do.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much.
That's all I'll say.
Yeah, that's all right. I appreciate that. Stop kicking me under the table. So I do think that the rhetoric can go on both sides. The examples can go on both sides here, maybe between Toronto and the provincial government. But from the theme of the mayors, it's that we are a willing partner to figure out where we can make changes that address some of these situations that the province is facing in a way that doesn't flick fruit off a plate and gives us that runway that we can do that. And just one more quick thing, when Robin's interview that she had here, she said, she said a few times that the money that's trying to be saved is not going to the debt and is not going to the deficit. She said, well, it's going back into healthcare, which is fine. But in one way, you can't say, we're trying to attack this huge debt and huge deficit problem, and then in another sentence say, but we're actually just taking that money that we're trying to save elsewhere and putting it right back in. So it's not going to the debt. It's not going to the deficit.
Let me follow up on that angle with John Snoblin here, because in some respects, we've seen this movie before, right? When you came into power in 1995 with the Common Sense Revolution, big deficit, big debt, need to cut back on spending in order to bring those things into line. You guys didn't want to raise taxes to help raise the revenue. You wanted to take a different approach, and we're seeing that movie again right now. The government, in its wisdom, has not chosen to meet the shortfall by raising taxes. It's looking for savings, efficiencies, cuts, call them what you will. But presumably that also means you got to cut the right thing. Are you satisfied that the right cuts are being imposed in this set of circumstances?
Well, I think I would agree with those who would suggest that it's a big challenge for the government. That the budget that the government set out takes us to balance in 5 years, and there's a lot of risk in those 5 years. I mean, that assumes that the economy still does well. That assumes that a very mature growth market continues to grow.
And no recession.
And no recession. So I think it's as aggressive as the government felt it could go so that it could make the right kinds of choices. Now, will you make all of the right choices? No one ever does. But can you make most of them? Sure. But most of the provincial spending is transferred to municipalities, universities, schools, and hospitals. Mm-hmm. And so those are the partners that you're going to have to work with to make budgets balance and to take on this enormous debt problem that the province has. My experience is every time you reduce spending in any of those categories, you're going to get a lot of blowback, and it doesn't really matter how much you reduce that spending. That's been my experience.
But presumably, I know all cuts are tough, and somebody's ox is going to get gored. But there's smarter cuts, and then there are stupider cuts. Which are these?
Well, I don't know that there are smarter and stupider cuts. As John said, we do at the provincial level have to depend on our transfer partners for a lot of the reductions, because that's the big nut that government has to spend on. I was critical of the budget in that I thought it didn't go far enough. Because
this is the Fideli budget.
Correct, okay. Because I believe if not in year one, then when? Because, as John says, no one likes cuts. And while both the mayor and Councillor Cressy are very responsible in terms of talking about being partners, and I take them at their word, The truth is, there are a number of your colleagues, I guarantee, and maybe Mr. Cressy himself, who do not want any cuts imposed on the municipalities. And it may not be Mayor Guthrie, but there are many who would not accept willingly reductions. And I just think they're necessary. They've got to be done. One of the ways that you do it is you try to sort out if we do have duplication. That's not just efficiencies. That's not just sort of tightening the belt. That is saying, maybe you need to get out of this business and we'll take it over. And I think there's a tremendous amount of room to do that because, as I said, I think all three levels of government tend to sort of fill what they see as voids in spending areas without really saying, hey, there's just one taxpayer, and maybe we should figure out who should provide this service best and who can do it most efficiently.
Well, to that end, Joe Cressy, let me get you to respond to another point that Robin Martin made, which was, in her view, the number is $33 million. That's the shortfall. I know you guys say it's larger, but whatever it is, it's tens of millions of dollars, which she says on a budget north of $13 billion is actually 2% of the budget and shouldn't be that tough to find. Your response to that?
It's an incredibly disingenuous statement. So the City of Toronto has a budget of $13 billion a year, and that budget includes transfer payments coming from the province and the feds, which we can't reduce. It includes $1 billion towards our Toronto Police, which I'd be very surprised if Premier Ford's telling us to cut the Toronto Police Service budget. Our Toronto Public Health budget is $191 million, which they're cutting. Now, Ontario is the only province in Canada that doesn't fund public health at 100% of the costs. The only one in Canada. And so not only are we going contrary to best practices and evidence across the country in terms of the delivery of health and public health, we're going back to the pre-SARS and pre-Walkerton phase here. Prior to SARS and Walkerton, the current proposal of making cities like Toronto pay 50% was the norm. We learned from that. So let me tell you what Dr. David Mowat, the former Chief Medical Officer of Health of Ontario, he was around after SARS and he was around again in 2015. He described this cycle. Governments cut funding to public health because when it's successful, it's invisible. Then we see an increase in communicable diseases. We see a public outcry demanding action, and we see a restoration of funding. When you invest in public health, you prevent diseases and future healthcare costs. And so I think the government here tried to slip a quiet one through, thinking nobody cared about public health because very few people can describe it. But what they're realizing is that whether you're in Haliburton or Sault Ste. Marie or Toronto or Guelph, that across this province, mayors, city councillors, boards of health, my goodness, the Doctors Association, Nurses Association, and Pediatric Association have come out. It takes a lot to piss off all three of those, but they have. And that's because this was a short-sighted cut.
I'd like to know what you're going to do in Guelph about this. You've got a shortfall now. Are you going to make up the shortfall by spending cuts elsewhere, by raising taxes on your property taxpayers? What are you going to do?
Well, many of the mayors, including myself, you have basically a few choices in front of you. You either look to go back to the taxpayer, either in increased taxes or fees. You either look at cuts that you have to make within your already approved budgets, by the way, we've already discussed that, to try to figure out what you aren't going to then provide as services to your citizens. You're going to actually have to look at maybe your capital works programs, not only for this year, but out over the next maybe 9 or 10 years in the forecast to say, well, we're not going to have to do these capital works, which is important infrastructure work that every city is begging for.
We're not going to pave these roads. We're not going to fix these bridges.
You have to choose.
Fix these buses.
That's right. And as I said as well, you know, one of the things that I'm a believer that government doesn't have to do everything myself personally. And there is, again, with this lack of runway or lack of a heads up, you know, there's even the nonprofit sectors that cities can partner with to say, you know, could you take over this? Could you look at that? But with no runway, no heads up, no giving that opportunity to have those conversations with other groups and other stakeholders in cities, it's given us no time to do that, no time, no capacity on our end or their end to look at potentially taking over maybe some other things that they can do right now. So there's lots of choices that are ahead of us.
I want to ask you a really unfair question because I know how you voted in the last Ontario election. I know how you voted.
You at least think you know.
That's right. I think I know.
You can be fairly certain.
Yeah,
yes.
I think I know how you voted in the
think
last
you know.
election. I think I know how you voted in the last election. I don't know how you voted. How'd you vote in the last election last June?
Is this when you go to commercial break?
No, we don't have, we don't have commercials here on TVO.
That's a personal thing that I'm going to keep to myself. As the mayor, I represent every single person. I'm the mayor for everybody, and I'm going to keep that as a personal.
Were you unhappy with the results of the last election?
I wasn't unhappy personally. I'm talking very personally now as myself, because we definitely needed to change, especially with the fiscal issues that were left by the Liberal government.
Okay, so I'm going to infer from that then that you probably didn't vote for Cressy's party. I'm going to infer that you probably were content to see the Progressive Conservatives come in. And what I'm getting at here is, do you feel betrayed here by a government that you were pretty supportive of for the first 10 and a half months that it was in office?
I had high hopes for them in regards to tackling the budget, the deficit, tackling the debt right away. But it is the manner in which it's happening. And we in the letter from the Lomco mayors, it did say, it said, we applaud the government for also having an ability to listen. But the mayors also wonder, why does it take an outcry? And so we have examples like autism funding, the planning changes under Bill 66. What we just saw today as announced with, we're going to not do plantings of trees. Oh, now we're going to do plantings of trees. There seems to be many things that are rolling out from this government that require an outcry, either from mayors or organizations across the province, to get them to listen. And what we're saying is, don't get to that point where you're listening. After an outcry, let's do the talking and listening beforehand to make it a little bit easier for everyone.
I'm going to follow up with John Snoblin on this one. John Tory did a radio interview last week on CBC Metro Morning in which he suggested that the cuts are being imposed upon the capital city more aggressively than on other parts of the province. Now, you, having formerly represented a riding in Mississauga, might not mind that. But do you agree with his conclusion?
I no, I don't think so. I mean, there's a lot of politics in this, a lot of back and forth. But Toronto is the big engine. It's also where the forefront of some of these social changes are going to have to happen, and the governments require their partners to make smart decisions too. It can't just be from Queen's Park. The hospitals, the municipalities, the schools, those folks need to make smart decisions, and we need to spend less money.
Okay, but having said that, Deb, it is considered conventional wisdom in Ontario politics that it's never a bad thing to pick on Toronto because you get brownie points in the rest of the province. Is that some of what's going on here?
I don't think that that's actually the case here, and I would. If you look to the next election, and if Mayor Tory, for example, were to run in the next municipal election, I think he would be more successful potentially running against Doug Ford than Doug Ford will be running against John Tory in Toronto, as an example. I think what's unfortunate here is that these two gentlemen should actually have a very shared interest. Because they both come from Toronto. They both were steeped in Toronto politics.
Both led the PC party.
Exactly. I'm disappointed as a conservative that we're in the situation we're in, and I think there's blame on both sides. And I just if you could shake them both and say, if Toronto succeeds, Premier, so too do you politically, and the same to Mayor Tory. And although I will say, I think the mayor has done a very good job of trying to roll with things in the last year and is kind of, I guess, hit his wall. And so we're seeing a different approach. But, we need shovels in the ground on transit. That will serve both of those men well. We need a strong, growing economy in Toronto. That will serve both of these gentlemen well. They really should have a shared interest in seeing Toronto succeed. And I hope they both come to that conclusion and we're able to move forward.
Take us inside Toronto City Hall, if you would, a little bit. And apologies in a way to everybody outside the capital city for asking this question, because they probably don't care as much as you do. But does Toronto feel picked on right now by this provincial government?
Well, let's just walk through the first 9 months of this government, and with regard to Toronto. In 9 months, this government has cut City Council in half without notice or consultation. They have cut the gas tax and, in turn, cut $1 billion for maintenance and repair to our transit vehicles without notice or consultation. They have cut our childcare funding by $85 million, affecting 6,100 subsidies for low-income parents without consultation. And they've cut our Toronto Public Health budget by $1 billion over 10 years without consultation and with a cost share formula that is worse for Toronto than any other municipality. So John Tory, our mayor, who I've worked with for years, is a very principled and reasonable man. You know it takes a lot to get him hot underneath the collar. And when John Tory goes public and says that this premier has launched a targeted attack on our city, and I quote that, you know they have. But more than that, what's happened here, to Mayor Guthrie's comment on mayors across this province, is that they might have disproportionately hit Toronto, but they are hitting every community in every corner of this province. When you have the Board of Health in Haliburton, Ontario, and in Thunder Bay, and in Perth County in Sarnia, and mayors from every corner representing 67% of the population, I think it's time to give your head a shake and realize you've got it wrong.
So here's my frustration with that. None of the mayors were ever going to say thank you. I know what you said in your letter, Mayor Guthrie, and that we should all be part of the solution when you've got massive deficits and debt, but it's not actually the reality, and it never has been. Every mayor is going to fight, and legitimately so. But you cannot convince me that anyone was going to say thank you, no matter how small or how big the reductions were.
Well, let me come right back on that. We've had the mayors of 28 largest cities in this province, spanning the political spectrum, come out and say, not only do we not want the cuts, but the cuts you're choosing are the wrong cuts. So your point may be mayors don't like cuts, but when a government gets it wrong, my goodness, when you yourself are saying, you know what, they did it wrong here by doing it in year.
Right.
This isn't just mayors. This is everybody, including yourself. And so I think the fact of the matter here is the province has got it wrong on public health. There is a wave of opposition growing, and just like they did on autism and the Greenbelt and the tree planting program, they're gonna have to reverse course.
If you were advising the Premier's office right now, would you say to them, because they have revisited a couple of things, right? They had a position on autism, then they changed it. They had a position on the tree planting, and then they changed it. Might be a couple others I'm forgetting right now as well. Oh, the Greenbelt. Doug Ford said during the campaign he'd look at development in the Greenbelt, and he walked it back the very next day. If you were advising them on this, what's the advice?
Well, look, I mean, I've had to walk a few things back in my time. It just happens, and sometimes, you face a different reality than you forecast. I would say that two things that the Ford government has to do going forward. One of them is they have to get better at working with the partners. I think there's some
Seems to be
validity to
unanimity
that,
on that here at this table.
and that's part of a government maturing and growing and understanding the role of all the players. But it has to hold firm on the very modest cost reductions that they forecast in their budget, because they are at the edge of reasonable. And if they don't deliver on those numbers, it's dire for the social services that people in Ontario depend on in the long term. And so they need to hold to those numbers.
Deb, you will no doubt remember this. I think we're going back about 34 years right now when
Ooh,
Brian
don't say that.
Well, you read in your history books as a child.
Exactly.
A senior citizen approached Brian Mulroney on Parliament Hill and gave him an earful because he went back on his word about de-indexing seniors' pensions. And so he changed his mind. But he didn't change his mind about the need to make the savings, and he raised a different tax. I think he upped the gas tax instead. Is that an out for this Premier on this file? Maybe restore public health, but find that savings somewhere else.
Well, I was thinking as Councillor Cressy was chatting, so if the Premier had come forward and said, okay, I'm going to reduce your transfer payments by X amount, I'm not sure we'd be hearing a different story than we're hearing. So I don't think there is a better reduction or a worse reduction. And if there is, then I welcome others to come forward and say so. But I think cuts are difficult. No one likes them, but they have to be done.
The debate will continue, and we thank the four of you for having it here with us on TVO tonight. Cam Guthrie, the Mayor of Guelph, Ontario, also the Chair of LUMCO, the Large Urban Mayors Caucus of Ontario. Joe Cressy, the Toronto City Councillor for Ward 10, Spadina-Fort York. He's also the head of the Board of Health for the City of Toronto. John Snoblin, the former PC Cabinet Minister. You can read him in the Toronto Sun. And Deb Hutton, who was a senior advisor to a couple of premiers, Mike Harris and Ernie Eves. And now you can read her in QP Briefing. Great to have all of you here at TVO tonight. Thank you.
Thank you very
Thanks,
much.
Steve.
The Agenda with Steve Paikin is brought to you by the Chartered Professional Accountants of Ontario, helping businesses stay on the right side of change with strategic thinking, insightful decisions, and business leadership. Are you on the right side of change? Ask an Ontario CPA.